The signal came in at 3:12. Not an alert, not a warning, a distress ping, the kind that skips every filter, every priority queue, and lands directly on the commander's console with a single red pulse. I was already awake, coffee in hand. 11 years sitting in a diplomatic observer's chair teaches you to sleep light. My name is Ezra Voss, Commander, United Earth Expeditionary Command, assigned to the Mid-Rim Patrol Sector. That is a polished way of saying I babysit the quiet edges of space where the Galactic Accord's major players do not bother to go. 41 species in the Accord. Humanity is number 41. We got 2 observer seats, limited jump permissions, and a treaty that reads less like membership and more like a supervised visit. I had spent 11 years being grateful for those 2 seats, sitting quietly, observing, filing reports nobody read, learning when to speak and, more importantly, when not to. The signal was from Varus 7. Varus 7 is a colony, a farming colony, planted on a terraformed moon about 60 light minutes from the nearest shipping lane. Grain, mostly. Some livestock. 4,200 people who chose the quiet life over the crowded stations closer to the core. 900 of them were under the age of 12. I know that number because I had read every colony briefing for every settlement in my sector. That is the job. Know the people you are responsible for, even if the Accord reminds you every 6 months that your responsibility is advisory in nature. Advisory. I set down my coffee, pulled the signal file, read the header. Duration 14 minutes 31 seconds, then silence. 14 minutes is not long, but it is long enough for someone to describe what is happening and then stop having the ability to describe anything at all. I called Darla Mwene. Darla was my comms officer, 29 years old, Nairobi-born, with the kind of calm that makes you think she was made specifically for crisis situations. She was already on the bridge when I walked in. She had read the file. She looked at me, I looked at her. "Play the last 30 seconds, I said. She did. I will not describe what was in those 30 seconds. What I will tell you is that there were children's voices in it, and then there were not. "How old is our jump window?" I asked. 11 minutes to calculate, 40 minutes of travel. "Do it." She was already doing it before I finished speaking. Owen Clark, my first officer, came through the bridge door pulling on his jacket. 20 years younger than me, fast on his feet, faster in his thinking. He had the look on his face that young officers get when something is wrong and they do not yet know how wrong. "What kind of distress?" he asked. "Colony. Accident, equipment failure." "No." He read my face, stopped asking questions, moved to his station. Ben Reeves, my tactical officer, was already running sensor configurations for Varus 7. He was a quiet man from Newcastle, 34 years old, with the kind of eyes that had already cycled through every bad possibility and filed them in order of likelihood. 2 previous deployments, not a man who startled easily. "Do we notify the Accord Council?" Owen asked. I thought about the Accord Council, about the 41 seats, about the forms and waiting periods and the standard 3-week authorization process just to open a channel to a HFY diplomatic relay. "After," I said. The bridge went still. The HFY are the oldest species in the Accord. They have been traveling the stars since before humans had writing. Their hegemony covers 11 star systems. Their fleet is large enough that most species stopped counting its ships because the number was uncomfortable to look at. We knew it was them from the signal, not because they announced it, because they did not mask the energy signatures of their jump drives. The HFY do not mask anything. They have never needed to. Tors, my helmsman, a 23-year-old from Manitoba who had never said an unnecessary word in his life, confirmed the jump calculations without being asked and sat with his hands on the controls, waiting. "Jump ready," Darla said. Execute. The stars moved. Vera 7's moon filled the forward viewport, pale and brown, grain fields stretching across its northern continent like handwriting from space. The colony lights were out. Not dim, not reduced, out, the kind of out that does not come back on its own. Scan for life signs, I said. Ben ran the scan. He looked at the result. He set his hands flat on the console. Commander. How many? None. The bridge was so quiet I could hear the ventilation system cycling. None at all, Owen asked, because he was young enough to still need to confirm. None, Ben said again. Not one biosignature on the surface. 4,200 people, gone. I stood up, I put on my jacket, I buttoned it. Owen, you have the bridge, full sensor sweep. Log everything you see. Where are you going? Down there. Sir, if the Kethvari are. They are gone, I said. They did what they came to do. I walked to the lift, stopped. Darla, open a channel to Earth Command. Priority 1. Do not wait for confirmation, just start it. Yes, sir. And Darla, I did not turn around. Keep that signal file locked, nobody else hears it. A pause, then understood. I took the shuttle down alone. Vera 7's surface smelled like grain and cold soil. The kind of smell that belongs to early mornings and good harvests, and none of what I was walking into. The colony was empty, not ransacked, not shelled. The buildings were standing. The equipment was still in place. The water system was still running, a gentle sound in the background watering fields that nobody was going to harvest this year. A bowl of cereal sat on a kitchen table in one of the homes near the main road. Still had a spoon in it. A chair pushed back at an angle, the way it lands when someone leaves in a hurry. I kept walking. The school was on the eastern edge of the settlement. Low building, colorful window frames, a vegetable garden out front that the children had apparently been growing as a class project. Small handmade signs stuck in the soil, tiny handwriting labeling tomatoes and carrots. The door was open. Inside, small desks in neat rows, drawings on the walls, a half-finished lesson frozen on a digital board, a simple math equation mid-explanation. 37 chairs. 37 empty chairs. I stood in the middle of that room for a while. I am not sure how long. I walked back through the colony toward the shuttle. That is when I found it, in the grain field on the south side of the main road. A child's shoe, small, blue with a Velcro strap and a cartoon of a planet on the side. One shoe, untied, lying in the grain. I picked it up. I held it for a moment. Then I put it in my jacket pocket, buttoned the pocket shut, and walked back to the shuttle. By the time I returned to the ship, Earth Command had responded to Darla's channel request. They were asking for an assessment report. I sat down at the comms console instead. I pulled up the Kethvari diplomatic relay, the one that normally required 6 forms and a 3-week waiting period. I bypassed the entire process. I opened the channel. It connected. This is Commander Ezra Voss, United Earth Expeditionary Command, I said. I am addressing the Kethvari High Regent's office directly. You have taken human children. You have taken them from a civilian farming colony that had no military presence and owed you nothing. I am giving you 72 hours to return every single one of them, unharmed. After that, I will not be the one you are speaking to. I will tell you that plainly and honestly so that no one can say later they were not warned. Bless your heart. I closed the channel. Then I called Earth Command and filed my assessment report. One line. We are going to need everything. The Kethvari High Regent responded in 4 hours. Not with the children, with a statement. The statement was 1,300 words long, dense with legal language, and explained in careful detail that under Section 7 of the Kethvari Territorial Code, any civilian colony operating within a disputed resource corridor. And Varus 7, according to their maps, sat inside one, was subject to the law of indenturement of dependence in the event of a tribute default. Humanity had not paid tribute, because humanity did not know we owed tribute, because no one had told us, because the Kethvari had decided sometime in the last 6 months to redraw their maps. They had not taken prisoners. In their legal framework, they had collected a debt. The 900 children of Varus 7 were not prisoners. They were, according to Section 7, property. I read the statement twice. I set it down. I looked out the viewport at the colony below us, still running its water system, still growing its vegetables for children who were no longer there to tend them. Owen was standing behind me. I could feel him trying to figure out what to say. "What does Earth Command say?" he asked. "They are convening an emergency session with the Accord Council, diplomatic channels. They want us to stand down and wait for the council process to run. And we are going to do that." "I am going to do whatever Earth Command tells me to do," I said. "Right now, they are telling me to document and hold position." So we hold. We hold. I held for 11 hours. During those 11 hours, 3 things happened. The first thing was that Admiral Sira Akafer, commanding officer of Earth's 5th Expeditionary Fleet, and the highest-ranked military officer currently authorized to speak on behalf of Earth Command, was recalled from her retirement ceremony on Orbital Station Callisto and put back in uniform. People who knew Sira Akafer said she did not object, because she had been waiting for the call for 11 years, the same as the rest of us. The second thing was that 6 other Accord species issued formal statements. 4 of them expressed concern and called for dialogue. 2 of them quietly sent messages to the Kethvari hegemony expressing support for the territorial code process. The 2 who endorsed the Kethvari were named in my report. I made sure of that. The third thing was that Darla came to find me in my quarters at hour 9. She knocked, came in, stood in the doorway. "I looked up Section 7, she said. "I know what it says. It has been used 6 times in Kethvari history. The last time was 400 years ago. The indentured dependents were returned at the close of the tribute dispute." She paused. 3 of the 6 times they were returned. 3 of 6, I said. "Yes, sir." She left without saying anything else. She did not have to. 3 of 6 times the children came home. 3 of 6 times they did not. At hour 11, Earth Command updated my orders. I was instructed to maintain documentation posture and avoid any action that could be construed as aggression against the Kethvari hegemony, pending the outcome of the Accord Council emergency session, which was scheduled to begin in 48 hours. 48 hours of process, then the session itself, which could run for days. The children had been gone for 11 hours already. I went back to the bridge, sat in my chair. The shoe was in my pocket. I could feel the shape of it against my ribs. "Owen," I said. "Sir." "Get me everything we have on Kethvari indenturement facilities. Locations, capacity, security configurations, everything in the intelligence library." He turned in his chair. "Sir, our orders say." "I know what our orders say. I am asking for intelligence data. There is nothing in my orders that says I cannot read." He pulled the data. I read for 6 hours. Ben sat across from me and read with me, making notes, building a picture. Tors kept the ship in position. Darla monitored all channels and flagged anything that moved. At hour 17, something moved. A Kethvari logistics vessel, civilian designation, the kind used for moving cargo on standard trade routes, departed from the hegemony's border station at Keth 9. It was moving at standard cargo speed. It had filed a route that would take it deeper into Kethvari space, away from the border, away from the Accord shipping lanes. Cargo vessels do not file routes away from trade lanes. Track it, I said. Already tracking, Darla said. Is it in our jump range? It is in our jump range. Ben, what does that vessel's cargo capacity look like for its class designation? Ben ran the numbers without looking up. Standard configuration for that class holds between 800 and 1,200 units of cargo. 800 to 1,200. 900 children. Sir, Owen said quietly. I see it, I said. Our orders. I know, I sat very still. Darla, has the Accord Council session begun? No, sir, it begins in 31 hours. And our standing order is to avoid actions that could be construed as aggression, pending the outcome of the session. Yes, sir. Pending the outcome, I said, which means the session needs to happen first, which means I have 31 hours before those orders are technically active. The bridge went quiet. Owen looked at me. He was young and fast and good at his job, and right now he was doing the math and arriving at the same place I had. You cannot intercept that ship, he said, alone with one patrol vessel if the Kithvari respond. I am not going to intercept it. I am going to follow it. I am going to keep it in sensor range and know exactly where it goes and what it is carrying. And when the council session happens, Earth will have that information. And if it goes somewhere we cannot follow, we will deal with that when it arrives. He held my gaze for a moment, then he turned back to his station. Tors, he said, adjust course to follow the Kithvari logistics vessel, maximum sensor range, do not close the distance. Tors adjusted course without a word. We followed it for 19 hours. The vessel did not go to a trade depot. It did not go to a civilian processing station. It went to a Kithvari military installation on the outer edge of the hegemony's fourth system, a place called Keth Narath, which did not appear in any publicly available Accord maps, but appeared in 3 intelligence files marked with clearance levels I was technically not supposed to be accessing from a patrol vessel. I accessed them anyway. Keth Narath was not a prison. In the Kithvari framework, it was an orderly holding facility for indentured dependents while tribute disputes were resolved. Clean, controlled temperature. The Kithvari considered themselves civilized in this practice. The facility held 896 children. I sat with that number. 896, which meant 4 were somewhere else, or unaccounted for, or the intelligence was incomplete. I did not let myself consider what else it might mean. Log the coordinates, I said. Full sensor package, everything we have, encrypted and transmit to Earth Command and to Admiral Akafor directly. Then send a copy to our 2 council seats. Sending, Darla said. I reached into my pocket, touched the shoe, did not take it out. Darla, open the Kithvari diplomatic channel again. A pause connecting. It connected in under a minute. They were watching our channel requests. They were curious. They were not scared. Not yet. This is Commander Voss, I said. I am calling to update the timeline. You have 53 hours remaining. I would encourage you to use them wisely. A long silence, then a translated voice, smooth and unhurried. Commander, you are one patrol vessel with no authority to act unilaterally and no standing to issue demands to the Kithvari hegemony. Your council process has not even begun. I am not certain what outcome you believe this call is producing. I am not moving toward an outcome, I said. I am keeping a record. When this is over, I want it documented that I called, that I gave you every opportunity. Opportunity for what? To be the species that gave them back, I said. That is the only path through this that ends well for you. I am telling you that genuinely, not as a threat, as a fact. Another silence. Your 72 hours carry no legal weight in this accord, Commander. No, I said, they do not. I closed the channel. 12 hours later, Admiral Sira Akafer's fleet left Earth's orbit. 14 ships, not the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled, the most specifically prepared. Admiral Akafer for Commander Voss, Darla said. Put her through. The Admiral's voice was dry and exact, carrying 11 years of patience in every word. Ezra, she said, send me those coordinates. Already sent, Admiral. Good, a brief pause. You doing all right out there? I looked at the viewport, the stars, the distant facility where 896 small people were sitting in the dark, waiting for someone who sounded like them. I will be, I said, once we get them out. That is the plan. Hold your position. Do not act until I give the word. The council session starts in 9 hours. We are going to let it start. We are going to let every species in that room see what was done and who did it and what they chose to do about it. And then, she said, we show them something they have never seen before. She closed the channel. I sat back in my chair. Owen looked at me. Get some sleep, I said, both of you. What about you? He asked. I will sleep when the children are home. He nodded, did not argue. Went to his bunk. I stayed on the bridge. I kept the sensor window open, aimed at Keth Nareth, and I watched it all night. The Accord Council emergency session began on time, because the Accord was above all things a bureaucracy, and bureaucracies run on schedule even when the world is burning. 41 seats, 40 of them filled with representatives from 40 species, all different shapes and sizes and ways of seeing the universe. Humanity's 2 seats had been occupied for 11 years by our standing diplomatic liaisons, Owen Hadley and Priya Rao, 2 career diplomats who had sat in those chairs without raising their voices once. They were not in those chairs today. Today, both of humanity's seats were occupied by one person. Admiral Sira Akafer sat down in the center chair, the one with better sight lines to the room. She was 71 years old. Her hair was silver and cut short. She wore the black uniform of Earth's Navy, not the blue diplomatic coat that every human representative had worn in that chamber for 11 years. She carried nothing except a single thin folder. She sat down. She did not greet anyone. She did not make introductions. She waited. The session was opened by the Accord presiding voice, a Velthari, tall and blue-skinned, known for running proceedings with meticulous order. The presiding voice stated the session's subject, an alleged unauthorized action by a member species against the Kethvari hegemony, specifically the unauthorized tracking of a Kethvari civilian logistics vessel. Not the colony. Not the children. The presiding voice did not open with the colony. Sira Akafer sat absolutely still. The Kethvari ambassador spoke first. His name was Vethnara, ancient, even by Kethvari standards. He explained in careful and polite terms that the Kethvari hegemony had acted within its legal rights under Section 7 of its territorial code, that the colony at Varus 7 had been established within a disputed resource corridor, and that indenturement of dependence was a lawful response to tribute non-payment. He did not say children. He said dependents. He spoke for 22 minutes. Several other species indicated support for the process, 2 who had sent their quiet endorsements, and 1 more I had not expected. I logged all 3. Then the presiding voice turned to humanity's seat. The floor is extended to the representative of Earth. Sira Akafer opened her folder. She looked down at the single page inside it. Then she closed the folder again and looked up at the room. You have spent 30 years telling yourselves a story about us, she said. Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. The translation systems carried it to every species in the room, and the room was very quiet. The story goes like this. Humans are useful, humans are clever, humans are manageable. They were kept out of the Accord for 30 years because they are volatile. But they have been in the room now for 11 years, and they have been quiet, and they have filled in their forms, and they have sat in their 2 observer chairs and not made trouble. So the story updated itself. Humans are contained. Humans understand their place. Humans are not a problem. She paused. I am here to correct the story. The Kethvari ambassador shifted in his seat. Humanity was kept out of this accord for 30 years, Sira continued, because the species that evaluated us looked at our history and came to a specific conclusion. Not that we are violent. Every species in this room is capable of violence. The conclusion was that we are the only species here that has ever fought a war to complete conclusion, not for resources, not for territory, not for political gain, for principle. When we decide something is wrong, we do not negotiate our feelings about it. We address it. We have done this throughout our entire recorded history, at tremendous cost to ourselves. She let that settle. The Kethvari took 900 human children from a civilian farming colony. Not soldiers, not adults. Children, the youngest of whom was 14 months old. They took them in the night from their beds and transported them to a military facility inside the Kethvari hegemony and called it a legal proceeding. Not a sound in the chamber. I am not here to request a tribunal review. I am not here to file a complaint or negotiate a framework. I am here to tell this council, clearly and in front of every one of you, exactly what is going to happen next, so that no one can say later they were not informed. She opened the folder. She slid the single page across the table toward the Kethvari ambassador. He looked down at it. The page contained one thing, a number. The number of Kethvari military assets currently within operational range of human jump-capable vessels. The ambassador looked at it for a long time. You have 51 hours remaining, Sira said. Return our children, every single one unharmed, to a council-designated neutral location. Do that, and we will discuss whatever territorial dispute you believe exists. We will sit at the table. We will file the forms. We will be the quiet, cooperative species you have decided we are. She stood, straightened her jacket. Do not do that, and you will find out why we were kept out of this room for 30 years. She picked up her empty folder. I have nothing else for the council today. Thank you for your time. She walked out. She did not look back. The chamber was completely silent for a full 30 seconds. Then everyone started talking at once. The presiding voice called for order 3 times before getting it. 4 species immediately moved to censure humanity for threatening language. 2 more called for emergency diplomatic contact with the Kethvari. The Kethvari ambassador sat very still, holding the piece of paper. Outside in the corridor, Sira Akeffer was already walking toward the transit bay. Owen Hadley caught up with her. Admiral, he said, slightly breathless, the council is going to censure us. The language you used could be considered an act of. Owen, she said, not slowing down. Yes. How long have you been sitting in that room? 11 years, Admiral. Did you enjoy it? A pause, not particularly. No, nobody does. Because there was never any real power in those 2 chairs, and everyone in that room knew it, and we kept sitting in them anyway and smiling and filing our reports and pretending we were grateful for the access. She reached the transit bay, turned to face him. What I said in that room was not a threat. Threats are uncertain. What I described is a certainty. The Kethvari ambassador is sitting in that chair right now, looking at that number, trying to decide if I mean it. And do you? Owen asked. She looked at him for a long moment. There are 900 human children in a Kethvari facility right now. The youngest is 14 months old. She was taken from her bed while she was sleeping. Sira's voice did not change in tone or volume. It stayed exact and flat and quiet. Does that answer your question? Owen said nothing. She boarded the transit. The 51 hours ran. The Accord Council issued a formal request for Kethvari cooperation. The Kethvari hegemony acknowledged it and said it would be considered through appropriate channels. The Council issued a second statement with stronger language. The Kethvari acknowledged the second statement and said the matter was being handled lawfully under established code. The Council began drafting a resolution. The deadline passed. 900 children were still in Keth-Narath. Sira Akafer opened a channel to my ship at 600 the morning after. Ezra. Admiral. Is the location still confirmed? Confirmed and updated as of 3 hours ago. Any changes? They added 2 patrol vessels to the outer perimeter yesterday. A pause. They knew we were watching. Yes, Admiral. And they added 2 patrol vessels. Yes. She was quiet for a moment. Do you know what that tells you? It tells me they think 2 patrol vessels will matter. Yes, she said, it does. A long breath. The fleet is ready, on my mark. On your mark, Admiral. 3 seconds of silence. Mark, she said. 14 human ships jumped simultaneously. I watched from my position at the edge of sensor range. Tors looked at me. Commander, are we going in? I thought about the empty school, the 37 chairs, the shoe in my pocket. Yes, I said, we are going in. Course. Follow the Admiral. He punched in the coordinates. The stars moved. 37 days. I have been asked to report on those 37 days many times since. What happened, the sequence, the decisions, the outcomes. I give the official report when it is required. What I am telling you now is the other version. The one that does not appear in any Accord record or Earth Command briefing. The one that is true. Day 1. We jumped from the edge of Kethvari space and the ship went quiet in the way that ships only go quiet when the people aboard understand what they are about to do. Not silent. The equipment was running. The engines were cycling, but the voices stopped. The shoe was on the console. I had carried it in my pocket since the colony. That morning, without saying anything, I set it on the console in front of my chair. Tors saw it. He looked at it for a long moment. He did not ask what it was or why it was there. He already knew. We all knew. The 14 ships of the fleet jumped in formation. 3 patrol vessels, including mine, jumped from our holding position and came in from 2 vectors simultaneously, hitting the outer range of Kethvari sensor coverage all at once. The 2 patrol vessels at Keth-Narath's perimeter turned to meet us. They were not enough, not close to enough. The moment their commanders understood that, they sent an emergency burst to the hegemony's nearest military installation and began to fall back. Sira Akafer let them go. Let them run, she said on the fleet channel. We are here to collect. Lucy Haddon's extraction team deployed before the perimeter was fully clear. 22 specialists in 3 drop shuttles, moving fast, every one of them carrying exactly as many supplies as they needed for 896 children. The math had been done. The weight had been calculated. Nothing was left to chance. Lucy was 31 years old. She was from Oxford. She had been running extraction operations for 6 years and had never done one like this. Her shuttle went in first. The Kethvari facility at Keth-Narath had not been designed as a prison. It was orderly, as the intelligence files described. Clean rooms, controlled temperature. The Kethvari genuinely believed they were being civilized about it. The children did not feel civilized about it. Lucy reported later that when her team breached the outer doors and the children heard human voices, real human voices, not translated ones, the sound that moved through the facility was unlike anything her team had experienced in 6 years of this work. She described it as every breath in the building releasing at once. I was not there for that moment. I was in orbit, watching the Kethvari military response forming at the edge of sensor range. But Darla was monitoring Lucy's feed, and she turned from her station at one point and said very quietly, "They are in." I touched the console where the shoe was sitting. That was day 1. Day 4. A pilot named Pete Callow, aboard the patrol vessel Hawksbridge, was the first to engage the Kethvari response fleet. Pete was 26, born in Devon. Loud, funny, the kind of person who made everyone in a room feel calmer just by being in it. He had been flying combat sorties for 2 years and had the specific confidence that comes from being exceptionally good at one particular thing. The Kethvari response fleet was not the 2 patrol vessels from Kethnarath's perimeter. It was the garrison fleet from the hegemony's 3rd system. 44 ships, military class, armed with technology that had been in service for 200 years without needing significant updates, because nothing in the Accord had made updates necessary. 14 human ships against 44 Kethvari. Pete Callow filed a mission note before the engagement. It said, "Outgunned 3-1, sounds about right." The Kethvari had never fought humans. They had fought other species. They had won most of those fights because they were the largest military power in the Accord, and their strategies had been refined over centuries of use. The difficulty with century-old strategies is that they assume the opponent fights the way everyone else has. Humans do not fight the way everyone else has. The engagement lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 11 Kethvari military ships were disabled, 4 were gone entirely, and the rest had pulled back to regroup. 14 human ships, still 14. Pete Callow filed a second mission note after the engagement. It said, "They will be back. We should eat something first." Day 9. The Accord Council broadcast an emergency statement to all member species, calling on Earth to stand down and enter formal mediation. Nobody aboard any of the 14 ships responded. Not because the message was not received. It was received on every vessel. On my ship, Darla printed it and set it on the console next to the shoe. We both looked at it for a moment. Then she went back to her sensors. What the Accord Council did not know, what no species in the Accord had known, because we had never had a reason to show them, was that humanity had been preparing for a moment like this one for 11 years. Not a war specifically, but the possibility of a moment when the 2 observer seats and the diplomatic forms and the patient silence would not be enough. Every year for 11 years, Earth Command had been quietly building, not announcing it, not filing it with the Accord, building in the shipyards on the dark side of the moon and in the construction facilities at the edge of the asteroid belt and in the engineering departments of a dozen universities. The Accord saw 14 ships in this sector. The Accord did not see what was waiting in Earth's home system. On day 9, 6 more human ships jumped into the sector. Now it was 20 against the Kethvari's reformed garrison. The Accord Council issued a second emergency statement. Nobody responded to that one either. Day 17. The Kethvari High Regent opened a channel to my ship. Not to Sira Akafur, not to Earth Command, to me. I think it was because I had been the one to call first, and in the Regent's mind, I was the human whose door he should knock on. I was sitting at my console when the channel opened. The shoe was in front of me. I looked at it for a moment before answering. The Regent's voice was older and more careful than the ambassador's. A species that had governed 11 systems for centuries spoke with the weight of that certainty in every word. "Commander Voss, the children have been returned." "They have," I said. "Then I would like to discuss the terms of a ceasefire." "The children were returned 4 days ago," I said. "Yes. We are still here." A pause. "Yes, I am aware of that, which is why I am calling." I looked at the viewport, at the dark space where 2 Kethvari military stations used to be. "I will be honest with you," I said. You should have called 11 days ago, before day 1, while the deadline was still running. That was the window. And now is a different conversation. Silence on the channel. You have your children, the regent said. All of them, returned as requested. What is it that you want? I thought about the handwritten signs in the garden, the vegetable garden with the tiny labels, the chair pushed back from the table in the kitchen of a house whose family was not coming back to it yet. We do not want anything, I said. We are teaching. Another silence, longer this time. Teaching what? The regent asked. The lesson is ongoing, I said. When it is finished, you will know what it was. I closed the channel. Ben Reeves across the bridge looked up from his screen. He held my gaze for a moment, nodded once, went back to his work. Day 22. Lucy Haddon's full extraction report had been filed on day 6. On day 22, I finally read all of it. All 900 children had been recovered. The 4 who had not been at Kethnarath were at a secondary holding location 6 hours away. Lucy's team had found them on day 3. One of the 4 was a 14-month-old girl named Cora. She was fine, healthy. She had, according to Lucy's report, been extremely unimpressed by the entire experience and had expressed this at considerable volume when transferred to the medical team. I read that line 3 times. I logged day 22 in the ship's record with a single entry. We got them home. Then I stayed at my station and kept working. Day 37. This is the part that is hardest to explain. Not the fighting was work, and work is straightforward. What is hard to explain is why the work continued after day 6, after the children were safe. The galaxy expected us to stop. The Accord Council expected it. The Kethvari expected it. Every other species watching from behind their diplomatic communiques expected it. Because that is how conflicts in the Accord work. You fight until you have what you want, and then you stop. We did not stop. Not out of anger, not out of grief. I want to be precise about that. What we were doing in those final 15 days was not emotional. It was the lesson. Every military installation that had been within operational range of the colony on the night Varus 7 went dark. Every ship that had been part of the logistics chain that moved those children from their homes to Kethnarath. Every command structure that had authorized Section 7 and made the decision. We found all of it. We removed all of it. Not the Kethvari as a species, not their civilians, not their cities or their worlds, their capacity to do what they had done. That is what we took apart, piece by piece, with the patience that only makes sense when you understand what it cost us to be patient for 11 years. Not rage, arithmetic. On day 37, the last of the targeted installations was confirmed clear. Sira Akafar opened the fleet-wide channel. Stand down, she said. Begin withdrawal procedures. All ships move to the neutral zone on my mark. Nobody cheered. The bridge of every ship, from what I was told later, went through the same quiet transition. Equipment cycling down, people exhaling, chairs pushing back from consoles. On my ship, I reached out and picked up the small blue shoe. I held it in my hands, the Velcro strap, the cartoon planet on the side, faded now from a month in my pocket and on the console. Tors, still at the helm, looked at it. What now? He asked. Now, I said, we go answer some questions. The Accord Council scheduled a formal session 14 days after the withdrawal. Enough time, the presiding voice said, for all parties to prepare their positions. It took humanity 4 days to prepare. We spent the other 10 waiting. I was not supposed to be the one speaking at the session. Officially, that role belonged to Owen Hadley, our senior diplomatic liaison, who knew the council's procedures better than most of the other delegates. Owen came to me 2 days before. He sat across from me in the ship's small briefing room and put his hands on the table and said, I think you should be the one to go. I am a military officer, I said, not a diplomat. I know that. The protocol for a post-conflict hearing. Ezra, he looked at me steadily. Nobody in that room wants to hear from a diplomat right now. They have been listening to diplomats for 37 days, 11 statements, and nobody responded to a single one. They know what diplomats sound like. What they do not know yet is what this actually was, and you know what it was. I looked at him for a long time. All right, I said. One more thing. He reached into his jacket and placed a small object on the table between us, a child's shoe, blue, Velcro strap, cartoon of a planet on the side. I looked at him. You should have it with you, he said. Tors must have given it to him. I had wondered where it had gone. I took it, put it in my jacket pocket. The council chamber held all 41 seats. Every seat was filled. The Kethvari had a new ambassador. The previous one had resigned for health reasons, officially. The new one was considerably younger and sat with the careful composure of someone who had been very thoroughly briefed. He was doing his job. You could see the effort in his posture. I sat down in humanity's first chair. Owen took the second. The session opened. The formal record was read aloud. The events at Varus 7, the 72-hour communication, the failure to return the children before the deadline, the 37-day campaign, the losses on the Kethvari side, the confirmation that all 900 children had been recovered and were safe. The presiding voice read all of it without expression. Then the floor was opened. The new Kethvari ambassador spoke first. He was measured and clearly instructed to de-escalate. He acknowledged that the events at Varus 7 had caused harm. He noted that Section 7 of the Territorial Code would be reviewed. He expressed a desire for a path toward normalized relations. 12 minutes, careful professional doing everything right. 18 other species spoke after him. Most of them expressed variations of the same concerns. The campaign had been disproportionate, the council process had been bypassed, the stability of the region had been disrupted, and a framework was needed to prevent similar events in the future. Nobody said the children should not have been taken. Let me say that again clearly. In 2 hours of testimony from 18 different species, not one of them said that what the Kethvari had done at Varus 7 was wrong. They said our response was disproportionate. They said we had bypassed the process. They said the region had been destabilized. Not one of them said 900 children should not have been taken from their beds. I sat through all of it without moving. When the last speaker finished, the presiding voice extended the floor to earth. I stood up. I did not have notes. I did not have a folder. I put my hands flat on the table and I looked at the room. I heard a great deal of testimony today about what we did, I said. I did not hear much about what was done to us. I am going to take a few minutes to correct that. Nobody objected. 900 children were taken from a civilian farming colony. The youngest was 14 months old. They were taken in the night, transported to a military facility inside the Kethvari hegemony, and held there under a legal framework that nobody in this room had ever informed humanity existed. No warning was filed with our diplomatic office. No notice was sent. A species 11 times our size walked into a civilian settlement and took our children and called it a legal proceeding. Complete silence. I am willing to discuss proportionality, I said. I understand the concern. I understand the campaign lasted 15 days after the children were recovered. I understand the Kethvari losses were significant. I understand the Accord's stability was disrupted. I reached into my jacket pocket. I took out the shoe. I set it on the table. The small blue shoe, Velcro strap, cartoon planet on the side, worn at the heel, faded from 5 weeks of being carried. This belonged to a 6-year-old child, I said. I found it in a grain field on Varus 7, one shoe, untied, in the middle of a field far from the settlement. The child who wore it is named May. She was recovered on day 6 of the campaign. She is currently on Earth, staying with her grandmother because the colony where she was born no longer has a functioning community to return to. I let that sit in the room. The new Kethvari ambassador asked, very reasonably, for a path toward normalized relations. Several other species asked for a framework to prevent this kind of response in the future. I am going to answer both requests at once. I looked at the room, all 41 seats, all 41 pairs of eyes. The campaign did not continue after the children were recovered because we were angry, I said. It was not grief. It was not revenge. Those are responses made when a species is out of control. We were not out of control. I paused. We continued because of you. All of you. The species in this room who watched what the Kethvari did and issued statements about dialogue. The species who quietly sent support messages while our children were in that facility. The species not yet in this accord who will hear about these 37 days from someone. We continued because the lesson had to be long enough and clear enough that it would not need to be taught again. The Kethvari ambassador was very still. The lesson is very simple, I said. If you take human children, we will not negotiate. We will not file a form. We will not sit in our 2 observer chairs and wait for the presiding voice to open a session. We will do exactly what we did, every time, without exception. A Velthari representative leaned forward. Commander Voss, you are describing a posture that removes this council entirely from the process. You are saying humanity will act unilaterally whenever. Whenever someone takes our children, I said. Yes, that is correct. The council's minimum process runs 72 hours from the start of a session. The children were taken in the night. If we had waited for the process, not all of them would have come home. And I cannot accept that. I will not accept that. No human in any chair in any room will accept that. The Velthari representative sat back. The accord process works for disputes between parties who are willing to wait, I continued. We are willing to wait on most things: trade disagreements, territorial boundaries, resource allocation, diplomatic protocol. We are patient. 11 years in those 2 chairs is the evidence of that patience. We sat quietly while species twice our size made decisions that affected our settlements and never asked our opinion. We filed our forms. We observed. We did not make trouble. I put my hand flat on the shoe on the table. We are not patient about this. And now every species in this room and every species hearing about this room knows it. Nobody spoke for a long moment. I looked at the Kethvari ambassador. He was doing his job, keeping his composure, following his briefing. But he was looking at the shoe on the table, and he was not managing to look away from it. The ambassador asked for a path toward normalized relations, I said. Here it is. Do not take our children. Do not take any human civilian. Do not touch our colonies or our settlements or anyone in them who does not carry a weapon and a military designation. Do that, and we will be the quietest species in this room. We will file every form. We will wait in our chairs. We will be everything the accord needs us to be. I looked at the room. But understand what the cost is if you choose differently. Understand it completely. Do not convince yourself that we were emotional this time and will be calmer next time. We were not emotional. We were precise. Precision does not change based on mood. It does not soften over time. It does not run out. The presiding voice spoke carefully. Commander, the Council has prepared a draft resolution that would extend full membership status to humanity, including a permanent council seat. It is the Council's position that full integration would formalize the protections you describe within the Accord's existing frameworks. I looked at the presiding voice. We will keep our 2 observer seats, I said. A pause, the offer of full membership. We appreciate it. We will keep the 2 seats. Several representatives exchanged looks. May I ask why? The presiding voice said. Because I spent 11 years sitting in those 2 chairs watching how this room works when it believes it is managing the conversation, I said. I watched who speaks first and who waits. I watched which species get taken seriously before they have finished a sentence, and which ones have to earn the room's attention every single time. I watched what a permanent seat looks like from the outside and what it looks like from the inside, and I know the difference. I picked up the shoe. I held it for a moment. 2 observer seats and 40 species who are not entirely certain what we will do next is more useful to everyone in this room than a permanent seat and the comfortable idea that we are contained. A long silence. You are saying that uncertainty is the arrangement you prefer, the presiding voice said. I am saying that uncertainty is an honest description of what we are, I said. We have never been contained. We have been patient. Those are not the same thing. You thought they were the same thing for 30 years. Now you know they are not. I put the shoe back in my pocket. I believe that covers everything the council needed from Earth today. Thank you for your time. I walked out. Owen walked beside me. He did not say anything for a long time. We walked through the corridor and out to the transit dock where the shuttle was waiting. At the shuttle door, Owen stopped. He looked at me. Was that true? He asked. The part about the 2 seats, was that actually a calculated position or was that just? Yes, I said. He looked at me. Yes, it was calculated, or yes, it was just. Owen. Sir. Go home, I said. Go see your family. You have been sitting in that room for 11 years. Go be somewhere that is not that room for a while. He looked at me. Then he nodded. Then he walked away down the corridor without looking back. I took the shuttle back to my ship. The bridge was running on minimal crew when I arrived. Tor's at the helm, Darla at comms, Ben at his station, the same as always. Nothing about the bridge had changed in 5 weeks except that the console where the shoe had been sitting was empty and had been since I brought it to the council. I sat down in my chair. I reached into my pocket, took out the shoe. I turned it over once in my hands, feeling the worn Velcro and the faded cartoon planet and the shape of it, small enough to sit in one palm. Then I leaned forward and set it on the viewport ledge, balanced against the glass, facing outward, facing the stars. It sat there. One small blue shoe, faded, worn far from home. Tors, I said. Sir. Take us home. He began entering the jump coordinates. I sat back in my chair and looked at the shoe on the ledge. 41 species in the Galactic Accord. Humanity is number 41. We have 2 observer seats. We sit in the back row and file our forms and wait our turn and smile at the appropriate moments. And everyone in every room in every station across every system of this accord looks at us and sees the youngest members, the last admitted, the ones who have been carefully managed since the day we signed the treaty. They see number 41. They see what they have always wanted to see. I know what I see. I see 11 years of silence that was never silence. I see 37 days that rewrote the math in every diplomatic calculation in the known galaxy. I see a grain field on a dead colony with one small shoe in it, and a room full of ancient species who will never again look at humanity's 2 chairs and see something small sitting in them. The stars moved. We were going home. The shoe watched the stars the whole way there. Number 41. For now,